as it lifted off, causing both engines to lose power. It's caused crashes in the past. They'll also look for evidence of pilot error. The captain and co-pilot were experienced, with more than 9,000 flying hours between them. But other crashes have been caused by pilots accidentally shutting down the one remaining working engine. Video shows that the plane doesn't drop from the sky. It looks like it's coming in to land. One experienced pilot told Sky News the flaps on the wings don't seem to be extended as they should.
I can't see any sign of takeoff flap being set. And with an aircraft of this type, you would have to have the correct flap setting for takeoff. So if for any reason that hadn't been selected or it had failed, that would perhaps be an explanation for why such a well-designed public transport aircraft should go down immediately after takeoff.
It's too early to know exactly what went wrong. Indian air safety authorities will lead on the investigation with help from the UK's Air Accident Investigation Branch. Experts from Boeing are also on standby. They'll want to quickly establish whether this is a catastrophic one-off or if there is evidence of a technical problem that could affect the 1,100 or so other Dreamliners currently in service.
That was Thomas Moore reporting there. Now, to try to learn more about the possible cause of the crash, I've been speaking to India's former...
Tenormen. Hi. Now we're comfortable. Let's talk urine leakage. Tenormen Active Fit Pants are designed for men with a discreet, secure fit and protects like Tenor. No more double dramas.
Logically and technically very reliable and sound, which is used by most airlines of the world. And to see such an aircraft going down is really something, it's quite a mystery, because all the circumstances for today's flight seem to be quite okay and perfect.
Yeah, I think that's one of the shocking things here, because despite Boeing's, many problems, the Dreamliner always had an excellent track record. And in fact, it was during your tenure that the Dreamliner was inducted into the Air India fleet. So you felt pretty confident, I guess, that this was the right aircraft for Air India, and it didn't seem to have any other problems.
I spoke to a captain who had flown this very same aircraft 3 days ago on a flight to Tokyo, and I asked him, did you feel that there were any problems with the aircraft, or did you have anything which you could notice which was not in line? And they were saying that, no, it was absolutely fine, as good as it can be. And remember, see, one thing, any aircraft is as good as it is maintained. So the age of an aircraft is not dependent on how old it is, but it is dependent on how well it is maintained.
And that's the question I want to ask you about the maintenance of this particular airline, because we have seen over the course of the years, not many, but previous Air India flights that have crashed, or airlines that have been affiliated to Air India. Do you think that there should be any questions being asked right now about the maintenance, especially around the Directorate General of Civil Aviation?
I have been in this ministry for many years, and I know what the protocols they follow. In fact, at times, even our airlines and pilots complain that our DGCA is extremely strict compared to other countries. In terms of maintenance, this aircraft is been, maintained by Air India Engineering Services for many years. And as I said, an aircraft is as good as it's maintained. And this has flown this very morning from New Delhi to Ahmedabad. And from Ahmedabad, it had already was cleared rather, to fly to London's Gatwick. The pilot in command was a very experienced pilot of 8,500 hours of flying. And obviously, as all of us know, when we fly, the pilots do pre-flight checks. And even if on takeoff, there is any midway, if they find that they're not gaining enough power or there's some other problem, they can abort takeoff, and I'm sure there's enough runway length available to abort and safely stop the aircraft. So in this case, as soon as it lifted, probably something went wrong, and the pilot gave a mayday call, and in 30 or 40 seconds of that, the aircraft crashed into the nearby buildings. So obviously, the pilot would have known if there's a problem, and the previous sector, which was from New Delhi to Ahmedabad, would have definitely also given some findings if the pilot would have noticed some deficiency.
That was Praful Patel speaking to me earlier. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim, next up on the programme. What the disaster could mean for Boeing, already in recovery mode after the crashes involving its 737 MAX aircraft.
Guys, if you often take the train in the UK, you have to download TrainPal. Here's why. First, you'll get a £10 discount.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. Well, as we've heard, this is the first time a Boeing 787 has crashed since the Dreamliner went into service in 2011. But the aircraft had a troubled start, and Boeing more broadly has been through a very turbulent few years. Just last month, it agreed to pay £812 million in a deal with the US government to avoid prosecution over two crashes involving its 737 MAX jets, which together killed 346 people. Our business and economics correspondent Gurpreet Narwan has been looking at the new questions facing the plane maker.
Door panels blowing off, missing bolts, fuselage blowouts. A spate of incidents and crashes, some of them catastrophic, that have rocked the aviation industry. And more questions for Boeing, one of the world's largest plane manufacturers and once the darling of corporate America. The exact cause of the latest crash is still unknown, But it's been a sobering few years for the company. Almost 350 people died in 2 crashes in 2018 and 2019. The company admitted to Congress that pilots weren't given adequate training on new software. Dreamliners were meant to be different, stars of the fleet, and used by almost every major airline. Now they too are under scrutiny.
The issue that Boeing is going to have to deal with urgently is that of confidence around its manufacturing processes. It's been through, over the last few years, a series of inquiries around why its manufacturing has not been up to scratch and not been as fail-safe as it should have been. It's vital that Boeing reassure as quickly as possible, because so many of the 787 Dreamliners are flying as we speak around the world.
And Air India, which boasts a robust safety record, now recording its 5th fatal accident in almost 60 years. All of this just as a big reset was underway at Boeing. The company recently agreed to pay $1.1 billion to avoid prosecution in a deal with the Department of Justice that angered the families of victims.
There are real lives at stake here, and when something goes wrong, tragedy affects hundreds of people. It's not just a minor mistake. So it's a really good example of why it is so important for, in our case, to make sure that Boeing is doing the right things and being overseen properly.
Under a new chief executive, sales were up and the share price recovering, but this has stopped that progress in its tracks. Shares were down more than 4% when the market opened. In a statement, Boeing said their deepest condolences went out to the loved ones of the people on board and in Ahmedabad, and that a Boeing team stood ready to support the investigation by Indian authorities. As of yet, we don't know what caused the accident, but the company's reputation is hanging by a thread. Gurpreet Narwan, Sky News.
So, unanswered questions for Boeing and the investigators looking into the crash. Joining me to discuss what could have gone wrong is retired United Airlines Captain Ross Amer, now Chief Executive at Aero Consulting Experts. Thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. I guess calls are being asked, for Boeing to reassure travellers, but how can they at this point, given the troubles they've faced in recent years?
Well, first of all, it's extremely too early to speculate on anything about this crash. And as far as we know, there are roughly 1,200 of these Dreamliners have been flying around. This particular airplane has been flying for 11 years. So if there was any manufacturing issues, it would have revealed itself by now. So it's way too early to blame either Boeing or Air India for anything else until we know more about this particular crash. One good thing about it is that, there is immediate access to the voice and data recorder, hopefully. They will recover that. And fortunately, there was at least one passenger that we know of that has survived. He can provide some valuable information. And lastly, that video that is going around on the normal takeoff of this aircraft, that would be very helpful too to the investigators.
Yeah, let's just talk a little bit about that video that has emerged. And again, as you say, it's too early to speculate at this stage. But just looking and analysing that video, what sort of clues do you see that could potentially give some answers as to what may have happened?
For one thing, the weather may not have been the issue because it seems to us that it was a clear day, perhaps a little warm. The only question that I had, why the aircraft gears were still down. I'm not sure about the flap. There was perhaps some flap, but it seems to me it might have been retracted too early. Again, I hate to speculate, but one of the first things in case of an engine failure, by the way, this aircraft has plenty of power on a single engine, even though it was obviously full of fuel for a 10 hours or so flight and roughly pretty heavy passenger load. So that would have not been the case where they didn't have enough power. And normally we use what we call a reduced takeoff thrust in order to save the engines, unless we absolutely need the maximum power, where they could have added by hitting what we call a toggle switch and get all the power out of the good engine. So, but it will, fortunately, because we have the access to most of the information, it'll be determined hopefully soon what caused this tragic crash. And I may remind everyone that considering all the flights that have flown daily on a 787, it's still a very safe aircraft.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, it has an excellent track record, an excellent reputation. You were an instructor at Boeing for these 787 Dreamliners. Were there any concerns about it flagged at any point, or did it sort of have a very good reputation from the get-go?
Well, if you remember, that there was some teething problems which we have with any new aircraft. In case of the Dreamliner, initially because there was that battery fire, lithium-ion battery fire, which they grounded the aircraft for a while until the new design of the battery case was introduced. Then this particular engine on Air India, I believe it is a Rolls-Royce engine. There's two choices for the engines on this Dreamliner. One is the GE engine, and one is the Rolls-Royce. I believe Air India may have had a mix of the two type engines. If it was a Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engine, they did have some issues with that engine initially. As far as I know, it was taken care of. And the aircraft also was the ones with that type of engine were grounded for a while before they fixed those engine issues. So it's been mostly trouble-free aircraft for a long, long time.
Ross, I'm going to just keep you there because a few moments ago, in the United States, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy made some remarks to try and allay the fears around the aircraft. I just want to play that to our audience and then get your reaction.
If there are initial factors of concern in regard to safety, as the administrator noted, we will be made aware and we will take action because for us, safety is paramount. But whenever one of these planes go down, we take it very seriously and deploy every asset and resource at our avail to assist in those investigations. I'll just note that I just want to commend the FAA. Their team is readily deployed. Notice they have a go bag. They have vaccinations. They're remarkable in how they operate.
Arrival at 787 has been an amazing advance in safety. The safety aspect of that car is incredible.